In this video, I'm going to show you how to do a character walk cycle in Autodesk Maya. One reason you're going to do a walk cycle rather than continuing to do a regular walk and doing every step of a walk after, sort of one cycle is you can repeat that cycle over and over for the entire duration of your animation. This is very typical for like game development. When you have a character walk or a character run, it does a cycle. It starts in one position, like in this example. You have a contact position on frame 1, and it is mimicked on frame 25. So this is a very typical, very generic walk cycle. There's lots of different flavors of walk cycle. There are lots of different ways to do a walk cycle and lots of different timings. We're just going to use the basic 25 frame walk cycle to set this up and really kind of learn all the basic elements of a walk cycle in Autodesk Maya before we can add more flavor to it and add embellishment to it. So looking at these positions, this is a 2D example that's pulled straight from the Richard Williams book, The Animator's Survival Kit, where you have a character that's walking forward and making a contact step. This is the first position that Richard Williams mentions in the book, where frame 1 is the contact position. On frame 25, that's the same contact position. So it is duplicated from frame 1 to frame 25. In frame 13, it's a contact position, but it's for the opposite leg. If you notice on this one, the character's right leg is forward. On frame 13, the character's left foot is forward. So we have one half of the walk cycle, which is 1 through 13, and the second half, which is 13 through 25. That's the same positions, just mirrored on the opposite foot. So if you look at position 1, 13, and 25, they all look the same, except the arm positions and the leg positions are mirrored. For this demonstration, I am just going to show the leg positions. I'm not going to worry about the arm positions in this video. I'll have a follow-up video that addresses that. But if you look at each one of these, this frame 4 and this frame 16, they're both the down position. The frame 7 and 19 are both the passing position. The frame 10 and 22 are both up, and then again, the contact position. And I'm going to kind of go through these and I'll animate them in Autodesk Maya one step at a time. So really I'm going to use this as a guide in terms of where the body position is. One thing you're going to notice is the body is going up and down and a little bit forward through the cycle and then comes back. 7, the passing position is not the highest. It is going from the down to the up. One reason it's called that. Some people label these a little bit different, but that's the concept, is the down is the lowest portion of the point the body is traveling, and the up is the highest point the body is traveling. The contact is coming back down. So the intermediate positions are the passing and the contact between up and down, right? A couple things about this on the contact position. It's very stable and solid. You've got this right foot that's making contact with the ground. The back leg has a little bend in the knee, and it's lifting on the ball of the foot. So we're going to mimic this for the character in Maya. And I'm going to go through each one of these, but I want to kind of point out that on the down position, both knees are bent. The toe is still touching the ground. The right foot is solid on the ground. Passing position, the body's traveling forward. The right foot still planted firmly on the ground, but the leg is extended and straight. The left leg is bent at the knee and the foot is going back. A couple things about the passing position is the body's moving over the foot, and then this leg is passing underneath the body. And on the up position, what's happening here is the body's moving forward and this left leg is about to catch its fall. You may have heard animators say this before, but a walk cycle is really just a controlled fall. Richard Williams mentioned something about that in the book specifically. All right, and then we're going back to the contact position, and again, just mirrored from the first. So the left leg is doing what the right leg was doing back here and vice versa. So I'm going to switch to Maya and I'm going to set all this up and I'm going to go back and forth to this so I can kind of get the idea of these positions in Autodesk Maya. All right, so I'm going to switch to Maya, and a couple things about this. I don't have the character in here yet, but I'm going to reference my character in the scene. And I'm just going to go to the outliner and right click, reference, create reference. I'm going to select that character. I've already created a project for this. And the reason I want to reference this character in is if I need to make changes to the rig or swap it in with a different character, I can do that and not lose all my animation. Typically you don't do that, but you sometimes will work with proxy rigs and then swap them out. So I'm going to reference this character in. This character was originally created with a different renderer, so sometimes you get an error when it opens up. And a couple things that I'm going to do for this is I'm going to press 6 on the keyboard to kind of get any textures to show up if I need them to. And I'm going to turn on two-sided lighting so it gets all the character's parts to show up like that. Sometimes rigs are created where you might see the back side of the geometry, and turning on two-sided lighting will fix that. So you might have a character that kind of looks like that. So one thing, the really cool thing about this character, this particular character, is if you select the control on the bottom and I go to the channel box, I can go down here to display. The individual who rigged this character set it up where you can turn on and off the arms. And I'm going to do that first just so I can not really think about the arms and what they're doing. I'm going to really focus on what the legs are doing. Right? So I'm going to get this character in position. One thing to point out, since I mentioned before, this is a 25 frame walk cycle, so I do not need more or less than 25. I'm going to set it up for 25 frames exactly. So I'm going to enter 25 here for the time slider and 25 frames for the exact walk cycle. Right? And then I can start putting my character into position for those cycles. Couple things I wanted to bring up is generally on frame 1, I like to kind of key all the controls. When I select across the character in the main viewport, I can press S on the keyboard and it's going to key every single control. That way I know if I move something accidentally, I always have that frame 1 to kind of come back to. I can always go back and set it to 0, but this kind of helps me if I kind of move things into position. I know that I've keyed everything, right? So a couple nice things about this character is there's a foot control down here at the bottom, right? And I can move the feet back and forth. They're set up as IK controls. So when I slide the foot forward, it's trying to reach out to that control, right? Which is kind of a nice benefit to a lot of IK controls where it's not just stretching the leg out. Some characters have the ability to turn the stretch on and off so the character would actually stretch its leg to touch the ground. This one right now, when I'm doing this basic walk cycle, I kind of want to have it set this way so I can make sure that the leg will lift and I need to make sure that I bring the character down to be touching on the ground. So I'm going to lower the body a little bit because, like I said, the first contact position, right? The body is not at its highest and it's not at its lowest. So I want to make sure that I kind of mimic what's going on with this foot and this leg. So I'm going to take this leg and I'm going to rotate it up, right? And then I can move it back a little bit because I want to make sure that I can, get it in contact with the ground, right? So I like to introduce a little bit of a bend in the knee just so you don't need it to be super solid, but just a slight bend because I want to make sure that I'm not stretching the leg out like that. So I'm going to introduce just a slight bit of a bend, right? And then I'm going to press S on the keyboard. And I'm going to do that for this root control too here. I'm going to press S because I had moved that down. And I'm going to take this other leg and I'm going to move this back, or this other foot, move it back, right? If I just start sliding it back, you'll notice that it already starts to introduce a bend in the ball of the foot, but I don't want that. I need that knee to be bent. So one cool thing that the rigger did with this character, I'm going to press S on the keyboard, by the way, is they added a heel ball control, right? That you can actually lift the foot off on the ball of the foot, which is kind of nice. So I'm going to set it to about 3 here, and I can just key that selected attribute. And then I can move this back a little bit more if I wanted to, and then press S on the keyboard. If I go back and look at my contact position, that's pretty much what I need. I need this right leg is going to be pretty much straight. The right foot is turned up a bit. I just rotate it slightly. I move this foot back and I change that heel ball control, right? The next step is on the down position, frame 4. So I'm going to move forward to frame 4, and then I'm going to start keying these positions. So on the down position, since this character is walking in place, instead of moving the body forward to kind of come over, which is really what's kind of going on here, I'm actually going to slide this right foot back. Now, granted, in a lot of animations, if you're doing a straight animation, you probably just want to keep moving the character forward. You probably don't want to just have it walking in place. Walking in place is more of like for game development, if you want to have a character idle cycle, or sorry, a walk cycle, So everything in a game exists on cycles. So if you're moving a character, if you're watching a character in a game and you're moving it forward and it's walking, it's just a looping, repeated cycle like we're going to be setting up here. Same thing if you start to run the character, it's going to do a run cycle. And then you have like an idle cycle when it's just standing still and maybe breathing or something. You probably see a lot of those cycles in games. In animation, you tend to not do the cycle too much. You want to kind of make the walk unique. So in pure animation, you probably just keep moving that character forward. But this is going to give you that idea of how to progress a character forward. I do not usually animate a character staying in place if I'm going to do straight animation and then move the character controller to move it around because it's going to be sliding across the ground. So usually I just transfer it forward. But in this case, we're just going to be doing it right in place. So in the down position, I need to move that foot back, right? So I'm on frame 4. That's that frame. I'm going to reset the rotation because that foot needs to be flat on the ground, and then I'm moving it back slightly. And you'll notice there's a bend in the knee and the foot is flat on the ground, and I've already got that. All I had to do is move it back a little bit and reset the rotation. And I'm going to press S on the keyboard. For the left foot, the knee is coming up and the ball of the foot is now straight, right? I do no longer have that little bend in it. So I'm going to straighten that out and I'm going to bring the knee forward and bend it at the knee a little bit. So I'm going to bring it up. I'm going to go down here, make that a 0. So that was that heel ball control. And I'm going to rotate that foot up, right? And then go to W and get it because it's making contact with the ground still. And ideally, I need to put a ground in here. I don't want to rely on just the grid for my ground. And I just realized that this was not set to 0 on the Y. So I'm going to kind of reset that. And I'm going to go back to my first frame and do that. So I'm going to set that to 0. And I'm going to key that whole thing. S on the keyboard. And I'm going to come to this one. And I've got it rotating a little bit. I'm going to move in a little bit so we can kind of focus on the action, right? I can bring it up a little bit if I wanted to. And I'm going to press S on the keyboard there, right? I'm going to go back to frame 1 because I want to fix see if this one is broken. Nope, it is not going up in the Y. So this one was, but I need it to be there, right? So I've got that first contact position, and then I've got my second down position, right? The second position on frame 4 for the down. And I'm going to grab this because it is going down a little bit. I need to kind of bring that control down a little bit. And I just press S on the keyboard. So it's going down and the legs are moving like that, right? Cool. So that's that second position, the down position. Now I'm going to go and set up a passing position. That's on frame 7. So I'm just doing this by the numbers because I want to make sure that I can get that, like I said, the basic default walk cycle down and be able to add embellishments to it after that if I want to. So I just kind of move the body up a little bit. It's not the highest position yet. And I'm going to bring this foot forward. And again, one of kind of the key indicators of this passing position is that the foot is behind this. If you see the right leg here, the knee is in front of it and the foot is behind it. That's kind of one of my indicators to kind of look at that and see how to set it up. So this one should be stable on the ground, right? And then I'm going to pull that control up just a little bit to kind of make sure that that's straight, right? So, and I'm going to move this back just a little bit because I want it to look as though, make sure that that foot is going back and the knee is in front. Now there's sometimes you can do different things with this foot, but that's going to kind of work out, right? So that's kind of given me the idea of what I want, right? Now I can move this control forward just a little bit. I'm actually going to bring it down just a tad and bring it forward because that's at this point in time where this body is sort of leaning forward and kind of moving itself forward. So I'm going to go back and look, and that's what's happening as the character is then kind of about to put its foot down on the next key position, on the next position for the walk cycle. Right, so which is the up position. You'll notice that that leg is still extended, but now it's starting to get up on the ball of the foot. and that that left foot is about to make contact with the ground. This is where the character is kind of coming over and about to make contact there. So that's on frame 10. So I'm going to frame 10. I'm going to move this foot forward, and I'm going to rotate it. Again, there are lots of different ways to do walks, and you can introduce lots of different things in a walk, but we're just kind of following along and doing sort of this generic walk cycle so we can kind of get the idea of what it's doing. I'm going to press S on the keyboard there, right? Character is about to make contact with the ground. The body is also going up further, and you'll notice like already it's starting to pull the foot off the ground, but I'm going to do that on purpose. Bring it up a little bit more, press S on the keyboard, and then I'm going to select that foot control and again add something here to this ball heel control, right? And then press S on the keyboard. And actually I should move it back just a little bit, and that would probably give me about what I need right there. And then this one, again, about to make contact with the ground, but has not hit the ground yet. You know, there's some variation in here, but that's about where it is, right? I want to make sure I key all these controls. So all I'm really dealing with, the reason I don't select everything is I don't need keys on everything on every stage of the walk. I just want it on very specific parts of the body that I'm moving, right? If you feel like you need to do that on every one, it just adds a lot of keys that you don't really need, right? So now I've got all 4 positions on one side of the body now, and I just need to add the next contact position on 13. So that's the mirrored position from 1. But what I could do at this point in time is middle mouse and drag frame 1. Basically by middle mousing, I'm going to be holding the position from frame 1. Oh, didn't mean to double click. Select off of it. I'm going to select that control, shift select that control, and shift select that control. That's all I've been really animating for right now. And I'm going to middle mouse and drag that all the way to 25. And then I'm going to press S on the keyboard. Now I know that frame 1 and frame 25 are identical. So I'm going to go to then frame 13, and I can't really mimic what's the position from frame 1 to frame 13 because the feet are in different positions, right? But I can mimic the root control that around the waist. So I can middle mouse and drag that to frame 13 and press S on the keyboard. And while I'm at it, I'm going to go to 4 and 16 because that is where these are mirrored. The down positions are the same. All I'm doing is the waist. It's at the same position. Eventually what I'm going to end up doing is changing the waist a little bit and changing that root control movement a little bit throughout the duration of my animation. I'll address that in a different video, but at this point in time, I just want to get the height and kind of the movement of that in general that I could just mirror from frame to frame. So 7 and 19 are the same. So again, middle mouse drag from 7 to 19, press S on the keyboard, and then 22 and 10 are the same. So I'm going to go to 10, middle mouse and drag to 22 and press S on the keyboard, right? And it just keys the position for that. Now I have the body moving throughout my entire walk cycle, right? And all I need to do now is go to each one of these positions for the foot and set the same positions for the foot. So I'm just going to go to that's frame 4, which is mirrored on frame 16. So I'm going to go to frame 16, and actually I'm going to go to 13 because it should be, I need that contact position where the right leg is now back, the left leg is now forward. So you already see that this leg is kind of traveling forward because of that previous key, and all I have to do is drag it down and extend it a little bit so it's making contact with the ground, and then I'm going to rotate it up a little bit, and maybe I'll bring it down just to make sure that it's kind of contacting with the ground, right? And again, I like to have just a slight bend in the knee just so it doesn't lock in, right? And it depends on the weight of your character and how it's kind of walking, but I'm going to do that. And then this leg is going to travel further back, and I'm actually going to zero out the rotation, and I'm going to zero out the translate Y. Right? Because this contact position, I need it to come back, right? And there's a little bit of bend there in the ball and heel. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to set that to 6, and I'll probably change. I'm going to go back to my first one because I want it to be a little bit different than when the character first starts to get a little bend in the ball of the foot. So I'm going to press S on the keyboard there. I'm actually going to go back here. That's what I was talking about here on this contact. I'm going to set that to 6. And I'm going to move it back just slightly. Press S on the keyboard, right? And then I'll get this character. And the reason I did that is because this bend in the ball of the foot, I already set that to 3. And then the next one, it should be, coming up a little bit higher, right? So there's that character. That's now that contact position and the middle contact position. Now the rest of these, I just go through and kind of set them. I mirror and I base my position here on this one. They don't need to be the same, and especially with a character walk, it doesn't have to be identical. It kind of looks unnatural, very robotic if they're exactly the same. So I don't go through and somehow copy and paste, the keys or the positions of those. I just go through and set them. So frame 4 and frame 16 should be about the same. So that key right there, I'm just going to take out the heel ball control. Take out that value. I'm also going to set that to 0. I'm going to set the rotation back to 0, right? And then I can, because I need it to be a little bit of a bend and sort of flat on the ground. So I'm going to press S on the keyboard, and then I'm going to kind of do the same thing with this one, but since that toe is up, I can take out that heel ball control, or the value for that, right? I'm going to take out the rotation for that, because I will be kind of counter rotating it, but I am going to select it, move it up, right? And I'm just going to set that. So for the rest of these, I'm going to go through real quick, and I'm going to sort of speed it up and show you kind of how I kind of accomplished the rest of them. It's just really kind of going through and setting up the rest based on the first ones, right? So I'm going to press S. All right, so I've gone through and set up all these positions. I'm going to go ahead and preview that. And there I have a basic walk cycle of this character, right? And I just have it looping. Now, if you see a little hiccup, one thing to kind of remember about this is right now it's kind of just looping. It's actually showing frame 25 and showing frame 1. So when you play blast this, if you just take one frame off of this time slider, of the range slider, so it doesn't show frame 25, I need frame 25 there because it has to come back to 1. It has to be able to animate from frame 22 to 25. But 25 and 1 are duplicates. So if you take one frame, knock one frame off of the time slider, you're actually not going to see that final frame, but it's going to animate towards it. So then you won't see any kind of hiccup, right? And that's where the character is walking in place. That I've got the body moving, it's going up and down. I've got each step placed, and I really just mirrored every position from the first contact, 1, 4, 7, and 10. Again, it repeats, but on the opposite legs. On 13, 16, 19, and 22, and again 25 is mimicked of frame 1, right? So that's all the steps to get through it.